In 1964, a rich musical voice was born in the heartland of America. Before his life was over, he would leave an indelible stamp on the fabric of rock and roll with a sound wider than the glistening Mississippi.
There are three guitar titans in the world of rock and roll: Chuck Berry, Jimi Hendrix, and Johnny Bazooka. And Eddie Van Halen. And that guy that played on I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt, that guy was a monster.
Man, his guitar was crunchy, like when a northern pike bites down on spin bait.
Johnny Bazooka, he played that axe like a freaking bastard. Like, just brilliant, like nobody else. Before or since. He was a fucking monster. You know, 78 was all about the beer, the music, the rock music, girls. And if you found Johnny Bazooka, you had it all. You're Nirvana.
You know, Johnny was an awesome songwriter too. I've been told Bob Dylan wishes he'd written Hefty Bag Window.
Yeah, Bob never said that.
We don't get many copies of Johnny Bazooka records in at all. When we do, they sell in minutes.
A copy of You Betcha by Johnny came in, I don't know, 6 months ago. We get them about twice a year, about as often as we get Van Halen's self-titled debut. Nobody gives those albums up.
Once the first pressing of Oofta came in, and we had a physical altercation between two of our best customers.
We had to hold a Johnny Bazooka trivia contest to decide who got to take it home. The thing took about 3.5 hours until Vinyl Vinny finally missed a question.
Amazingly, no photos or film of Johnny Bazooka exist. Though countless photographs were taken, Bazooka's image was never visible once the film was developed.
You gotta remember, this is way before cell phones. Everybody had a camera. You know, you had camera and you had film. And you had to develop that film.
No image. That sounds a little bit like Satan to me.
Johnny was a creative force. He poured all the energy from his chakras into his music with passion that he shared for the world. So much so, I think Johnny projected onto that film, and then poof, no energy, gone.
Bazooka's father, Lars Anders Gumption, was a traveling blue spruce salesman making his way across western Wisconsin in the spring of 1963. In the city of La Crosse, he pulled into a gas station and looked up to see Penny Glover washing his windshield. His life would never be the same.
She said he bought 73 cents a regular and stole her heart.
Penny had just graduated from high school and she was working at her dad's gas station to make money to go to beauty school.
When Lars stopped for gas, those sparks were flying. We were lucky that Texaco didn't go up in a mushroom cloud.
She invited him to a smelt fry that evening at church, and things got serious fast.
What's a smelt?
Seriously? It's a little fish. Delicious.
Anyway, by the end of the smelt fry, Penny had netted Lars and convinced him to stay in La Crosse.
Her parents warned her if she moved in with that, excuse me, damn Norwegian, she might as well never come back home. So she flipped him off, and off with Lars she went.
Using the money she'd saved for beauty school, Lars and Penny rent a tiny cabin in the tree-filled bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River and begin their lives together. They spend evenings listening to the radio and sipping old-style beer. Sometimes Lars strums his acoustic guitar and Penny sings harmony. It isn't long before Penny is pregnant.
We went up and visited him a few times. Gosh, they were over the moon happy. You know, he was selling spruce trees to that new development faster than an Eskimo can build a snowman. So they just decided to up and buy that cabin. Winters were hard for them though.
Bjorn Nils Gumption, aka Johnny Bazooka, is born on Valentine's Day, 1964. Doctors immediately noticed his left hand is twice as long as his right, but do not diagnose him with any mental or neurological disorders. His parents bring Bjorn home to their cabin in the bluffs, not realizing how important that parcel of land will become to his creation as an artist. For the next 8 years, he has a happy childhood climbing trees, building forts, and playing in the woods.
Bjorn lost a lot of mittens. Penny was constantly knitting new mittens for those weird-sized hands of his. She knitted mittens all winter. She hated it.
Nobody was more shocked than I when a ratty pair of Johnny Bazooka's mittens sold for over $500,000 in the spring auction. They went for more than Alice Cooper's guillotine.
Lars and I would get together every week for coffee over there at the Country Kitchen. He was obsessed with TV shows that were based in Florida. Like, for instance, I Dream of Jeannie with that little cutie and her astronaut. Then came Flipper. He loved that Black Bear, Gentle Ben, airboating over the Everglades with Dennis Weaver. Lars basically swore that one day he would disappear into the Sunshine State.
On a Friday night, Lars and Penny go out for a lutefisk dinner and leave Johnny at home with a babysitter. It was the last time he will see them.
I've been a patrolman for 42 years, and it remains one of the most horrific scenes I've ever come across.
Was alcohol involved?
Hell yeah, it's involved. This is Wisconsin.
When you arrived on the scene, what did you find?
Well, it was, we had about a light dusting of snow, about 18 to 22 inches, so the roads were a little bit slick. And when we pulled up, we followed the tire tracks down the embankment, and that's when we found Lars Gumption.
Was he alive?
Oh, hell yeah, he was alive, and he was pissed off. He picked up a branch about the size of a baseball bat and was swinging at the car, screaming, "Fucking winner! Fucking winner!"
And his wife?
Oh yeah. She picked up a rock and started smashing the back passenger window of the car. You ever seen that movie Fargo? Winter messes with people up here. She stopped and looked up long enough to ask, "Is it cold enough for you?" Then she went back to smashing up the car. Yeah.
After calling a tow truck to remove the car from the ditch, Officer Parsons sends the two on their way. But Lars and Penny Gumption never make it home. A car, matching the description, complete with a plastic bag being used for the rear window, is last seen at a rest stop near the Illinois border. Officials believe they are on their way to Florida, leaving 8-year-old Bjorn behind as an unwilling orphan.
Lars and Penny were model neighbors. I'm just shocked they just disappeared. I was babysitting Bjorn that last night. I never did get paid.
With his parents suddenly gone, Bjorn has to grow up faster than other children. He quickly becomes his own caretaker, gathering food by trapping squirrels or catching bluegills in the river. One day, he picks up the abandoned guitar his father left behind. Alone with just an AM radio and a guitar, Bjorn strums chords 10 hours a day until he can play every song in the top 40. Then he turns the radio dial to the country station and learns those songs. The oversized left hand he'd been born with allows him to reach notes no other guitarist has ever played.
Sergei Rachmaninoff was a Russian composer and brilliant virtuoso pianist. He possessed immense hands which could stretch 7 black keys on the piano, so he was able to create unusual chord progressions that others could not. His music is not easily performed.
You mean just like Johnny Bazooka?
Who?
With the basic guitar chords under his belt, Bjorn begins creating more complicated versions of popular songs.
It's fascinating to listen to his growth. He turned Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves by Cher into an overture. His insane solo on the Tie Yellow Ribbon by Tony Orlando and Dawn is almost sinister.
I remember that day because he played me his version of Barry White's Never Gonna Give You Up. I had to go shovel snow for about half an hour after that just to cool down. When I came back the following week, he told me not to call him Bjorn anymore. He was Johnny Bazooka. Whew, he was growing up fast.
Living alone in that cabin, I think he channeled a higher force. He scooped up some mud from the banks of the Mississippi River and molded himself into a slimy, funky guitar god. I know some people have other theories.
There's no doubt Johnny Bazooka walked into the cabin in the woods and made a deal with the devil. I mean, no doubt in my mind at all that he sold his soul. I mean, seriously, guys, what kind of man messes with a Tony Orlando song?
Legend has it that blues great Robert Johnson went to the crossroads to sell his soul to the devil to be the best guitar player ever. Some people think that Johnny Bazooka did the same thing in his cabin. When he stared into the embers of his fireplace, little demons jumped out and danced the mashed potato just for him.
Wait, who says that?
You know, people in Wisconsin.
Wait, what?
I want to believe it was God-given talent, but that deep, dark music was magic.
By now, word of the wizard guitarist in the woods has begun to spread. One of the people who hears the rumblings is a local nightclub owner named Nigel Baritone, who runs the Shoebox.
So I had this vision of a club that would help introduce music to the area, right? And it was small, intimate. So yeah, I could get crowded at times.
Yeah, the Shoebox. We all started there. It was downtown. It was a small club. It held 5 people.
Did you say 5?
Yeah, 5. So if a band had, more than 4 people, there wasn't room for an audience. But if you caught someone coming up, it was like the badge of honor. When the police hit town, it was Sting, Stewart, Andy, and 2 fans. So, they made T-shirts that said Thing 1 and Thing 2, and they wore those friggin' things all year to every show. The one bastard who saw U2 their first time through town, he was insufferable.
Have you ever seen a show at the Shoebox?
Oh, I've seen hundreds, but none were better than U2. It felt like Bono was singing right to me.
That must have been incredible.
The only awkward moment was when he asked me to pass the collection plate. I was the only one there. U2 was so green that they don't even know that music critics don't pay for anything. I don't even carry a wallet.
So, I got wind of this kid up in the bluffs that played guitar. And I thought, what the heck, I might as well drive up there and have a look at him. It was unbelievable what I found up there. All right, so I get there and the screen door opens up and this kid invites me in. So, I go in and take a look around and, this cabin is spotless. I mean, every single thing is in its place. And, he goes and he gets this notebook, and inside the notebook are all these lyrics of songs he's written. There are these lush, intense lyrics. And I'm reading through them, and then he goes and he gets his guitar and he brings it over. He brings his guitar over and he proceeds to wail. Oh, it was unbelievable. I mean, the guy's like a lumberjack version of Jackson Browne or something. So I say, you want to play in my club for $5 a night? He says yes. So I booked him for a week.
Other than the Beatles at the Cavern Club, Bruce Springsteen at the Bottom Line, and the Ramones at CBGB's, few shows are spoken about with more passion than Johnny Bazooka's first showcase at the Shoebox.
Sold out!
We sold out the entire week. It was a huge success.
That's what, like 28 tickets?
Exactly.
Did any band not sell out the Shoebox?
I'll answer your smart-ass little question. Loverboy.
The legend is being written. The 28 people who witnessed the Johnny Bazooka concerts quickly spread the word. They barraged local record store owners for any Bazooka recordings. But, of course, there are none. These rumors reached Slick Ricky Bumpkin, the manager of Scoundrel Records in Minneapolis.
I was always on the lookout for new talent. I heard stories about some cave boy with hands like a lemur who swung from vines and played guitar like George Harrison. I mean, if half that shit was true, it was worth a trip down the river.
Slick Ricky is impressed and signs Johnny Bazooka to one of the most infamous contracts in rock and roll history. Signed to a record deal, Johnny Bazooka packs up his guitar and takes a Greyhound bus to Minneapolis, recording his first album, You Betcha, with legendary Twin Cities producer Professor T. The sessions take place at the famed White Castle Studios on Frontage Road.
What a gifted artist. He had this full realization of what his songs should be, so I just pressed the button on the tape deck and watched him take flight. We recorded the entire album in just over an hour.
The entire album?
Yup, all 10 tracks. I remember Slick Ricky Bumpkin was furious when we charged him for a second hour of recording. He refused to pay.
You Betcha is released just before Christmas in 1978. It immediately resonates with the American public. The album rockets up the charts, even with no single to drive radio airplay.
It all worked. I mean, the songs were real and the people felt it. He doesn't get a lot of credit for his vocals, but they were pretty outstanding on that disc. The pain was visceral. You felt abandoned when you heard Hefty Bag Window and It's a Sunny Road to Hell.
I knew it was a great album, but when we passed Pablo Cruz in the charts, it was clear we had a hit. When we flew by Foreigner and knocked Billy Joel out of #1, I knew Johnny B was making history.
The album blew our minds. We had a huge party. We played You Betcha for 24 hours straight. Until the manager at Perkins kicked us out.
The album did okay, but he still wasn't bringing in my money.
Johnny Bazooka is a star. He returns home to his cabin in La Crosse, where he continues to write songs and practice guitar.
One day, he's listening to the radio and his own song starts playing. He told me he began to cry. That radio was like a little magic box to him.
Shot straight out of a cannon, Johnny Bazooka was blowing up. Inspired by his debut album, You Betcha, famous artists from around the world began flocking to La Crosse to meet Johnny Bazooka. If the music released in 1979 is any indication, Johnny had a huge impact on these artists. These stories are still told in La Crosse bars to this very day.
Hey, is that a Suburbs t-shirt?
You betcha. You know, when Bazooka first came to the Twin Cities, he saw the Suburbs. Being from Wisconsin, he thought their song, I Like Cows, was a masterpiece. I can't disagree.
Tell us about a visitor you remember.
Well, Tom Petty was here for a week.
Wow.
Johnny almost punched him when he found out he was from Florida, but once they started playing guitar, they became fast friends. When Tom got back to LA, he told guitarist Mike Campbell that Johnny lived up in the hills like a refugee. Then they both flashed, looked at each other, and then wrote song Refugee in about 15 minutes.
So Debbie Harry, you know Blondie, heard You Betcha, loved the punk energy. So she's just got to meet Johnny. Comes to town, the two of them hit it off big time. Spent 3 days up in that cabin, singing and laughing, having a great time. Well, of course, Debbie wants Johnny to come back to New York with her. Well, Johnny's not leaving Wisconsin, are you kidding me? So she gets pissed, calls him a pussy, storms out. Of course, on the plane ride home, she writes Heart of Glass on the back of a cocktail napkin. That's Johnny.
When he got to the cabin, Johnny was building a snow fort, and he had one of those, you know, those plastic brick mold things to make the perfect brick. And Roger just, you know, he lost it. He became a kid again. And they stayed up, I think, for a couple days building this massive snow fort. Later that year, Pink Floyd released The Wall. And you know, Another Brick in the Wall was their #1 hit.
So, I have a story, but you have to promise that it's not in the movie.
We absolutely will not put it in the movie, Robert.
Okay, so I spoke to Robert Plant a while ago, and he said that after they found out that Johnny Bazooka died, they immediately went into the studio. They recorded an entire album of Johnny Bazooka covers. They thought it was the best thing they'd ever done. Someone threw on Oofda, and their hearts just sank. They couldn't come even close to Johnny Bazooka. They destroyed the master tapes. Robert Plant says it's his biggest regret ever. It was probably the best thing they ever did, and they were just young. They should have known they could never have gotten within 1,000 miles of Bazooka.
With the public demanding a tour, Scoundrel Records tabs Johnny Bazooka to open for the Glass Monkeys, a new wave band from Berlin, at First Avenue in downtown Minneapolis. The show was a blast.
We were pumped. The place was packed. Bazooka opens und crashes. 1, 2, 3 encore. We wait backstage. We run on stage. Club is empty. People gone. Glass Monkeys shattered.
Based on the overwhelming response, Bazooka is pulled from the Glass Monkeys tour and paired with Meatloaf, who is touring North America promoting his legendary debut album, Bat Out of Hell.
He was the hottest ticket in the country. The Bat Out of You Betcha t-shirts still fetch top dollar on eBay.
Every record company in America passed on Meatloaf twice. His manager once joked that they were forming record companies just to reject him. Johnny Bazooka and Meatloaf just clicked. They were two chunky rebels out to save rock and roll. Did you
say hunky?
Mr. Loaf, he loved Johnny's passion. They went together like ketchup and, well, meatloaf.
Any truth to the rumors that Johnny Bazooka lost his virginity backstage while reenacting Paradise by the Dashboard Light?
No comment.
Young Johnny Bazooka is mesmerized with life on the road. He begins staying up past 10 o'clock.
Johnny had never been out of Wisconsin except for to record his album. He grew up on Wisconsin cheese and just assumed it was the same all over the country. Well, it wasn't.
He'd heard that Meatloaf made special demands at each venue, so Johnny requested a specific sharp cheddar be delivered every night straight from Perryville, Wisconsin.
His parents used to take him on a day trip as a child. They made his favorite cheese curds in the world. His parents had no idea those curds would become his gateway cheese.
It was really tough to ship things in those days. FedEx was pretty new. Occasionally the cheese didn't make it to the dressing room on time.
Things came to a head in Cleveland. We tried to pass off an Ohio cheddar, and Johnny went berserk. He flung his plate across the dressing room and almost took out Jim Steinman's head.
He performed his opening set like a true professional. But after the concert, he was nowhere to be found.
We heard rumors that he had split with a group of farm boys from Chagrin Falls, so we drove out there in a tour bus and found an epic party raging.
The barn was filled with drunken teenagers, but Johnny was out in the field with a group of boys tipping over cows. You see, cows sleep standing up, and teenagers sneak up on them and push them over. It's a rite of passage in the heartland.
From the pasture, we heard a thud. And Johnny started screaming, "Accept our gift, sacred gods of cheese!"
We found the group out in the field, threw a blanket over Johnny's shoulders, and got him back to the tour bus. He slept all the way to Terre Haute.
I'm guessing the partiers in Chagrin Falls, Ohio still talk about that night to this day.
For the lucky few who saw him on that tour, the memories are eternally etched.
We slept outside the arena all night long to get tickets for that show. I lost 3 of my toes due to frostbite, but I wouldn't regret it for 1 second. He was the greatest performer I have ever seen.
You don't realize the greatest moments in life are when you're sweating away in a mosh pit with some punk slamming into you with safety pin earrings. Oh man, I miss those days. Johnny Bazooka taught me to love music. He was a legend.
The young cannon, Johnny Bazooka, celebrates his 16th birthday on February 14th, 1980. He quickly obtains his driver's license and prepares to record his much-anticipated follow-up album. He gives it the working title of Oofda.
He really wanted to push the musical envelope this time out. We even discussed extending our studio time to 2 or maybe even 3 hours to get the sound we were after. He was raring to go.
The Oofda sessions leave no doubt that Johnny Bazooka is reaching his artistic peak.
You know, his follow-up albums go Led Zeppelin 2, Johnny Bazooka, 2 of a kind. It's brilliant music, that. The angst, the power, and the sheer, just raw energy of it. That line from that bitch that ditched me, and that solo when he play that tree-slinging bastard. There's nothing like it.
Once Oofda is completed, Johnny Bazooka makes one last trip up to the Twin Cities for the record release party. He fills up his gas tank at the Franklin station, where his parents first met, then leaves La Crosse at dusk on the spring equinox, March 20, 1980. Somewhere near Lake Pepin, Minnesota, his car veers off the highway and crashes through the ice into the Mississippi River. His car is pulled from the river 6 days later, but Johnny Bazooka's body is never recovered.
All they found were tire tracks and a blue guitar pick.
Fans refer to it as the day the music drowned.
I couldn't get out of bed for a week, but I had to get out to go get Johnny's new album.
The line at the Great American Music Store wrapped around the block. She was right in front of me. We were both crying. I guess you could say Johnny B introduced us. We've been married for 30 years.
Oofda is released posthumously on April 1st, 1980, and debuts at number 1. Critics immediately proclaim it as the album of the century. Well, most critics.
I wanted Bazooka, but wound up with Double Bubble. I wanted You Betcha, and I got Oofda, you know?
Despite the tragedy, rumors swirl around the album's release date on April Fool's Day. Magazines are deluged with letters from Johnny Bazooka's fan base, claiming that the car accident was staged and that Bazooka is still alive. It is a myth that persists to this day.
I would say the city gets one anonymous tip a month regarding Mr. Bazooka. Some see him on the street or at Batteries Plus. Another guy claimed he saw an old bearded guy walking on bluff trails with a guitar last fall. It never ends.
We have a Bazooka cover band now. Big Euros. Joke's on you, Johnny.
Johnny, we'll always have an open mic at the Shoebox for you.
Robert Plant told me John Bonham broke down when he heard Bazooka was gone. Plant suggested they hit the pub and have an Irish wake for Johnny. But Bonham passed. He said he was too emotionally devastated to get drunk.
In the end, Johnny Bazooka delivered the rock and roll catharsis and redemption only hinted at by the Beatles and the Stones. Long after those bands are forgotten, people will still be gobsmacked by Bazooka. Teens will still drive way too fast as they crank his tunes, even if they're flying in saucers over post-apocalyptic charred landscapes.
People? Of course he's still alive. He's the freaking devil!
I think about him just about every day, and then I take my medication.
You betcha, Johnny B. You betcha.
Bazooka!
There are all these years have gone by. I think back to that magic, a couple of years where I knew Johnny and his music and how it inspired me. I think about all the ones we've lost over the years, and it makes me think of what my mum told me when I was just a wee boy. Was like us, damn few in their old deed. Love you, Johnny.
People say they can still hear his guitar gripping through the bluffs near his home on a foggy morning. He's around. He'll always be around.
A few years after Johnny died, we're sitting in the movie theater watching E.T. and we see his long finger come out with that light at the end. And we gasped. Johnny was an alien.